HOA put a fence around my ranch, so I bought the property with the only gate key. They locked me inside my own ranch, and thought they owned the key. My name is Jack Whitaker. I'm 61 years old, a retired land surveyor, and the last man standing on the original Whitaker Ranch, a stretch of 80 acres nestled deep in the soil of West Texas. My family settled it long before zoning maps were a thing, back when fences were wood, not corporate policy. I never wanted trouble. Just a quiet life, some peace after losing the love of mine. My wife, Claire, passed 2 years ago. Cancer. The kind that eats fast and leaves slow. Since then, I've kept her garden blooming behind the house, every hydrangea and creeping thyme where she left them. That land is more than just soil. It's memory. But lately, memory doesn't count for much when HOA boards start playing God. They call the new development Cedar Gate Estates. Fancy stone signage, drone-shot videos online, and a brochure promising upscale rural living. They built around my ranch, swallowing up neighboring parcels until my land sat like a stubborn island in a sea of vinyl fences and asphalt trails. I never sold. Never planned to. And that made me a problem. It started with letters, politely worded, condescending ones. Then HOA bylaws showed up in my mailbox, though I was never a member. Your ranch does not comply with the Cedar Gate Community Aesthetic Code. Apparently, a red barn and hay bales aren't in line with the Mediterranean stucco vibe they were marketing. I ignored it. Until the fence went up. I was gone that day, picking up tractor parts in town. When I came back, a 10-foot-tall steel fence ran across my southern entrance, the only road access I had. There was an electronic gate panel and a glossy HOA logo embedded in the concrete post. At first, I figured it was some mistake. But when I called the HOA office, I was routed to a woman named Dana Whitmore, HOA president. Voice like spray tan and plastic smiles. Her exact words were, "Oh, Mr. Whitaker, we've restructured the perimeter buffer zone for security and visual cohesion. The easement technically falls within our new shared maintenance area." I asked her if she got permission from me. She didn't answer. I tried driving out the next morning for a feed delivery. Keypad wouldn't respond. The screen flashed, access unrecognized. My supplier waited in his truck, engine idling, tapping his steering wheel. I called the HOA again. Dana took her time. A full 40 minutes. When the gate finally opened, she pulled up in her Audi Q7, sunglasses perched like a crown, and said through the window, "Might want to get with the program, Jack. The community expects a certain standard." Then she smiled. That kind of smile people wear when they think they've won. I didn't say a word. Just loaded my feed and drove back inside like a prisoner with a weekend pass. That night, I walked the fence line by flashlight. Every bolt was fresh. No notice, no hearing, just installation. And I noticed something strange near the gatepost, an old boundary marker I hadn't seen in decades, just barely peeking above the grass. It was a survey stake, flagged orange. I went into the house, dug out my old map tubes from the study, and unrolled the land plat on my dining table. 50 years of boundary lines, easements, and notes filled the paper in my own hand. And there it was. In the corner where the fence now stood. Parcel #47B, listed under Undivided Easement Lot, Utility Access Only. Not HOA. Not mine. Just hanging in limbo. I ran my finger along the ink. My breath slowed. That parcel wasn't part of their development overlay. It had been excluded from the last county rezone because the original developer dissolved before transfer. The HOA built their entire gate on land they didn't even own. They had fenced me in. But in their rush to trap me, they missed one crucial detail. They didn't own the door. I leaned back in my chair, the map still spread out like a treasure map no one else bothered to read. Claire's wind chimes tapped gently against the porch rail outside, like punctuation in the silence. I didn't yell. Didn't storm their next meeting. I just reached for my laptop, pulled up the county assessor's website, and began typing. Because when you've spent your life measuring land inch by inch, You learn exactly where to press when it's time to push back. And I was just getting started. The red desk lamp buzzed softly as I sat hunched over the plat map like it was a battlefield blueprint. 50 years of experience stared back at me from ink lines I had once drawn myself. They fenced me in, but they missed something critical. The gate, the entire thing, stood on land they didn't own. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I pulled up the county assessor's records, ran a parcel search for 47B. The result made me sit back and smile for the first time in months. Owner, Lone Sycamore Development, LLC, status, dissolved. Bingo. The land hadn't been transferred to the HOA. It was still listed under a defunct shell company from the original builder, inactive for over a decade. The gate Dana Whitmore was so proud of sat on a legal ghost. I checked one more record, delinquent tax status. Now it was personal. Next morning, I called Bo Clemens, a retired title officer I used to drink coffee with at the feed store. Bo had worked every inch of this county in his day, and had a memory like a courthouse archive. "Jack," he said, flipping through the parcel file I handed him. "This here's what we call a legal orphan. Ain't nobody claiming it, which means it's up for grabs if you're willing to bid for the taxes owed." "How much?" I asked. He chuckled. 12.5 at most, depending on who's watching. I tapped the plat with one finger. "I'll be there." That evening, my niece Tina rolled in from Austin in her beat-up Toyota. She'd always been like a second daughter after Claire passed. Sharp mind, real estate paralegal by trade, and a fighter when it came to small-town injustice. "You sure about this?" she asked, after I told her what I planned to do. "Not just sure. Quietly furious." She smirked. "Good. Let's give them a lesson in land law they won't forget." 3 days later, we sat together in the back row of the county tax auction, me in a faded ball cap and Tina scribbling notes on her phone like she wasn't connected to me. Lot #47B came up fifth on the docket. Minimum bid, $10,000. The room was filled with bored investors, a couple of contractors, and no one from Cedar Gate Estates. They had no idea what they'd built on, or who just stepped into their trap. I raised my hand once. Final bid, $12,500 sold. No cheers. No gavel cracks. Just paperwork, silence, and opportunity. The next move had to be quiet. No flags. No banners. Just precision. Tina and I filed the deed transfer under a holding company she'd set up, Hollow Key Holdings, LLC. No one could trace it back to me unless they really dug, and HOA board members rarely dig past their own reflection. We installed a new lockbox at the keypad base, changed the access code, and reinforced the underground conduit with a control switch. I left a notice inside the panel. Private property. Entry requires permission of legal owner. No HA seal. No bluff. Just law. Bo confirmed the title record had posted online. The land and the gate legally belonged to me. I didn't tell a soul in the neighborhood. I let the silence grow like moss under their porch lights. And in that quiet, I started digging a little deeper, not into dirt, but patterns. Dana's patterns. Turns out, this wasn't the first time Cedar Gate Estates had tried this. Tina pulled HOA meeting notes, old property transfer docs, and even drone records from the county GIS system. 3 homes bordering my ranch had once had natural tree buffers. Now gone, replaced with paved walking trails the residents never asked for. The HOA had rerouted drainage, rezoned the land without transparency, and used intimidation to force out the last 2 ranch families within 5 miles. One of those families? The Bravins. Their grandson reached out after hearing rumors I'd been fenced in. "They pushed my granddad out with fines and threats," he said. "Said his chickens were a pest concern. Next month, he was gone. Sold it for pennies. They bulldozed the coop before the ink dried." My jaw clenched. I took notes. I had ammo now. But I didn't plan to fire it. Not yet. No, first I wanted them comfortable. Let them believe they'd won. Let Dana glance out her window each morning, seeing me still behind the fence. Still quiet. Still small. What she didn't know was, the gate key was mine. That Friday evening, Tina and I sat on the porch, watching the sun dip behind the horizon like it knew something. A cool breeze whispered through the pecan trees. "You going to tell them?" she asked. "Nope," I said. "Not until the day they need me to open it." Tina grinned. "That day's coming." I nodded slowly, lifting a glass of iced tea. "Soon as they try to hold their next community event. Or when Amazon can't get through. Or someone calls for an ambulance." She went quiet. Then said, "You think Dana's going to lose it?" "No," I said, setting the glass down. "She's going to learn who she fenced out. They didn't just fence me in. They fenced themselves out." The morning sun cast long shadows across the Cedar Gate Estates sign as Dana Whitmore's luxury SUV rolled up to the gate like she owned the place. And then, brakes squealed. She leaned out her window, jabbing the keypad with her manicured fingers. The small screen blinked once, then flashed in bold red text. "Access denied?" She tried again. Slower. Then faster. Same message. A third attempt. Nothing. For the first time in months, Dana Whitmore didn't have control. Across the street, I sipped my coffee from the porch, watching the scene unfold like a private matinee. From this distance, I could hear her voice rise, not with fear, but fury. She called the HOA board chat. Then the maintenance officer. Then security. Every answer she got was the same. "We don't know what happened. Try again." But the system hadn't malfunctioned. It had just updated its owner. Within 2 hours, the HOA group chat exploded. Residents trapped behind the gate. Food deliveries redirected. A moving truck stuck in the service lane. I sat quietly and let the digital storm surge around me. No one heard from me. No warning. No anger. Just absence. And that absence? It grew louder than any protest. That evening, the HOA scheduled an emergency board meeting. And for the first time in its history, they invited me. I arrived in jeans, boots, and a blue flannel Claire used to say brought out the silver in my beard. Tina walked in beside me, calm and prepared, holding a leather binder and her phone recording quietly. The boardroom was tense. Dana stood at the head of the conference table, arms crossed like a scolded queen. The rest of the board sat in uneasy silence. I placed a small USB stick on the table. "Press play," I said. The TV screen lit up with a slideshow. Parcel 47B plat map. County deed transfer. Auction confirmation. Filing notice under hollow key holdings. Access control rights with timestamped records. Each slide clicked by like a gavel. No narration. Just facts. When it ended, I looked at Dana. "You built your entire security gate on my land." Dana's eyes twitched. Her voice cracked on the first word. "This is sabotage, manipulative and vindictive. We were protecting the community." Tina stepped forward before I had to respond. Calm. Cool. Sharp as a nailgun. "The easement agreement expired 5 years ago. HOA had no legal grounds to install permanent structures on the parcel. You built it. You wired it. You locked out the rightful property owner. That's trespass." Dana started to speak again, but Tina held up a copy of the expired easement clause. "This gate? It belongs to us now." Silence. Then I made my offer. "I'm willing to reopen the gate. For $1 per entry. Payable through a simple mobile app. The funds will cover road maintenance, which, until now, you've enjoyed for free." Shock rippled through the room. A few board members looked ready to riot. One resident from the back asked, "Wait, is that even legal?" Tina smiled. "Very. Toll access on privately owned infrastructure is not only legal, it's common in this state. Especially when easement rights are expired." Someone scoffed. "So we pay you to come and go?" "No," I said. "You pay to use what's mine. Or you don't use it." By that night, for residents had downloaded the app and paid $1 just to leave for work. One of them even sent me a message. Honestly? Respect. But most? Furious. And in their fury, the truth started leaking. The local news picked up the story. Rancher reclaims land HOA tried to fence off. The article went viral. I didn't give interviews, but they aired drone footage of the gate and interviewed a neighbor who'd once been fined for putting a flag in their flower bed. Dana tried to control the narrative, blamed technical irregularities and deliberate misinformation. But it backfired. Tina published the documents online. Within 48 hours, an anonymous HOA board member leaked emails. Emails that showed Dana calling older residents property value sinkholes. Another one? A proposal to fine me $500 for non-regulation fence color, written 6 months before the fence even existed. Residents turned. Some apologized to me directly. 3 former landowners reached out to say they'd been forced out by similar harassment. One woman said Dana threatened to bring code enforcement weekly if she didn't sell. I didn't call lawyers. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I just watched the board tremble as the truth flooded in faster than they could plug the holes. Dana tried one last power play, circulating a motion to remove my gate access for non-compliance. She claimed I was a safety threat. But Tina shut it down with a single sentence at the follow-up meeting. Legally, you are guests on his property, not the other way around. Final votes were cast. 4 board members abstained. 1 resigned. Dana turned pale as a tax envelope and stormed out mid-meeting. That night, I walked down to the keypad and changed the message screen. It no longer said, "Access denied." Now it said, "Welcome. Please respect this land." I never raised my voice. I just closed the gate, because now it was mine. News vans idled just outside the once-locked gate as a reporter narrated into her mic. Behind me is a property dispute turned viral story of quiet revenge and unexpected justice. Above the keypad, a new wooden sign read, "Private ranch access, enter politely." No security logos. No HOA branding. Just words that meant what they said. The camera panned to me walking the edge of the fence line. I didn't wave. Didn't pose. Just walked. That was enough. The first ripple landed a week after the broadcast. The county issued a zoning violation fine against the Cedar Gate HOA for unlawful construction of permanent barriers on a parcel outside their jurisdiction. It wasn't a massive penalty, $15,000, but enough to force the board into the public record. Then came the internal audit. It uncovered what we already suspected. Over $72,000 in misallocated landscaping charges. Backdoor contracts funneled to Dana's cousin's company. HOA funds used for private club subscriptions and board retreats. Residents were livid. Dana's resignation was quiet, but the fallout wasn't. One board member openly wept at the next meeting and said, "We should have listened to Jack from the beginning." I didn't seek revenge. I didn't need it. I had land. Peace. And now, clarity. Tina, on the other hand, turned this into something bigger. She was invited to speak at 2 real estate forums about rural property rights and land abuse under predatory HOAs. Her paper, Gatekeeping and Ground Truths, was published by the Texas Bar Review. My story? It ended up in a case study at the local university's property law seminar. One student emailed me and said, "You made me want to practice law the right way." I didn't respond. Just smiled and kept pruning Claire's roses. Then one Saturday morning, Mr. Hayes came back. He pulled up in an old blue Ford with a trailer hitched behind it and 3 goats in the back. He stepped out slow, limping from years on rough fields, and looked at me from the gravel. "I saw the story," he said. "Figured maybe it was time I came home." I walked down the steps, nodded once, and said, "Got room for your coupe if you want it." He grinned. "Bet you do." The town held a small ceremony 2 weeks later. Bo Clemens, the retired title officer, received a plaque for quiet advocacy and land rights. They gave it to him on the same lawn where Dana once held HOA wine tastings. He handed it to me after the speeches and said, "I'm too old to hang it. But I'd be proud if it sat on your porch." It does. Right next to Claire's bird feeder. I built the archway with my own hands. Took 2 weekends, 3 trips to the lumber yard, and the help of a neighbor's teenage son who said he wanted to learn real work. The arch sits just behind the gate. Oak beams. Bolted steel joints. A sign overhead. Whitaker Ranch, since 1874, still standing. And if you look closely under the lettering, carved lightly into the corner, it says, "Dedicated to Claire, for roots deeper than any fence." One afternoon, I was sitting by her rose bush, reading a yellowed paperback she'd dogged years ago. Sunlight filtered through the live oaks, and the hum of cicadas echoed in the stillness. A little girl from the HOA wandered past, chasing a windblown leaf. She stopped, looked at me, and waved. I raised 2 fingers from the armrest, and nodded. She smiled and kept walking. She didn't see an enemy. Just a man with a garden and a story. And for the first time since they put that fence up, I didn't feel surrounded. I felt rooted. Final paragraph/thesis. Sometimes justice doesn't need lawyers or fences. Just the right key, and the patience to wait. They built the wall to trap me in. I bought the land that kept them out.